And if the lights do go out, how do you feel the population will react?
Well, so a lot of people just treat it with apathy.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, no, lights gone out, you know. I mean, there's an awful lot more people going to go out and buy a generator.
Mm-hmm. So you think there'll be a high demand for personal generators?
Oh yeah, they'll sold out within the first 6 months or whatever it started.
Mm-hmm.
And then, like, of course, we'll be producing more CO2 than what we produced before.
So
it's pointless.
So the policies that were designed to reduce CO2 will actually end up increasing it.
Yeah. It's always this reverse theory, alleged unintended consequence.
Do you think comparisons might be drawn to the health and safety in PC Brigade and what you describe as eco-fascists?
It's all part of what I describe as the corporate Nazi ideology. It's all based on various sort of lines of fascism. I mean, eco-fascism is obviously the sort of best, but there's sort of safety fascists coming in from another angle. And then you've got health fascists like today. I mean, they're going to sort of ban people like sort of having cigarettes on display, which is like sort of shoplifter's charter if you have to go round back to get some out, you know, they're filling their pockets up off from sort of stand. It's like smoking ban, you know, like sort of, they claim it's been a big success, but at the same time that they've done it, like sort of industry has sort of voluntarily banned trans fats, which are sort of responsible for sort of biggest number of heart attacks. So you can't like sort of prove anything there on heart attack line. Cancer is fairly subjective. If you smoke, you sort of no risk anyway. So it's common knowledge that if you smoke, you can get cancer. You know, like if you want to be frightened of that, you don't smoke. But to sort of ban it from pubs, it were obviously sort of designed to sort of close them down. It's closed loads of pubs down all over the country. You know, like you've got property speculators moving in to sort of turn them into like sort of fancy wine bars or whatever, and like in some places and others they'll sort of make them into big houses. And if you add in how much they're making now, I mean, NHS is stumping up for sort of anti-smoking stuff like patches and inhalers and lozenges and, you know, like sort of chewing gum. So they've got themselves sort of plugged into welfare state, taking a cut out of that, and corporates are laughing all the way to the bank, you know. Like, but I mean, you know, well, it can't possibly be anything to do with that, because like sort of we are the Labour Party and we're supposed to look after interested people sort of style, you know.
So would you suggest that something that has been dressed up as a measure that is to address tolerance is actually intolerant?
You know, it's Hitler's dream policy, isn't it? He like, sort of always wanted to ban smoking, but I don't think they'd ever let him do it. Even though they let him get away with all sorts of stuff, but I mean, they wouldn't let him do that. Yeah, it's a fascist ideology. It's like sort of this sort of excuse for authoritarianism that's sort of been sort of sneaked in under guise of something completely different. It's not sort of visible on the surface.
Do you think the influence of the EU has contributed to this, and if so, how?
Yeah, well, it's a corporate lobbyist dream, you know. I mean, they can go and sort of lobby EU commissioners or whatever, and nobody gets to know what it's all about, and they all sit behind closed doors, no sort of democracy to elect, and you know, they can do whatever they like, and you know, I mean, admittedly they sort of turn around with sort of climate change thing just recently. They're not going for 30% like they said they were. They're leaving it at 20, which they reckon they're going to meet anyway. It's a recession, so that's like sort of makes sort of Chris Huhne look really eco-fascist, like sort of bleating for 30, you know, like sort of, which you know, I mean, you can't blame that on EU anymore. It's not an EU problem anymore. I mean, EU has so many times been used as an excuse to introduce stuff that we didn't need to sort of bring in, not to that extent at all. You'll get a 7-page EU directive and it comes out a sort of Whitehall, like sort of a book.
Why do you think that happens?
It's opportunists.
Cronyism.
Yeah, like the mates will say, why don't you do this? We'll make a lot of money out of that, you know, like sort of, doesn't matter if nobody can afford to pay for it, but it's, I don't really think it is greed, it's more an intellectual dishonesty.
You think these people know they're doing wrong, but they don't care?
Probably sort of not, but then they're all sort of alleged mad libertarians, aren't they? And, you know, like sort of, I mean, you get it, Freedom Association and stuff like that, all bleat about this and that and something else, and when you look at a lot of it, it's not actually about freedom at all, it's freedom to rip people off, they're sort of exceeding the remit, you know what I mean? I'll be satisfied when everybody in Britain can be warm and dry and have a full belly. You know, if I mean, you're not going to get everybody, because some people will live off streets, whatever you do, but I mean, like, smoking ban again. You know, how many people are sleeping on streets because they smoke and they can't smoke in a shelter? You know, you've got to look at it like that, you know, like sort of people deliberately not sleeping in hostels and, you know, like sort of rooms available because you're not allowed to smoke there. It's a public place, and it's all negative. It's all don't do this, don't do that, don't do something else. You know, like I was saying originally when I was a kid. You know, I mean, stuff that I used to get up to. You know, I mean, people get locked up for allowing you to do it now. It's not. You know, it's gone, all that freedom we have. I mean, you can remember what freedom was actually like in the 1970s.
Well, a lot of people watching this won't have been born in those days, so it's very important that...
Yeah, but it always gets misrepresented as sort of strikes and, you know, like sort of all caused by Labour this, Labour that, Labour something else, and fair enough, after Dennis Healy took that loan out from IMF, it were really bad.
Do you think that might happen again?
I think that somebody sooner or later is going to have, you know, sort of stand up and have the balls to say, look, we're going to default on this debt because there's no way we can ever pay you, and you can either take so much or...
Do you think there's any chance the new Irish government will do that?
I hope so. I really do hope they do sort of, like they say, renegotiate. Now, whether they'll be allowed to do it or not, I don't know, but I mean, well, you either rearrange it or you default, that's what you've got to, I mean, all these years, like sort of corporates have had a gun at the head of the government. You know, you'll have to do this, you'll have to do that, you'll have to do something else. Now, actually, it boots out of the foot, and if Brown had been any good, he could have done it 2008.
Why do you think he didn't?
Because they would have assassinated him.
You reckon?
Yeah. He would have been dead.
It's that deep then, do you think?
Oh yeah, he would have been dead if he hadn't sort of done what stock market wanted.
So you feel that people that achieve high positions of power in politics have this type of gun to their head, that they know they can't do the right thing, even if they wanted to, really?
Probably, you know, quite a significant number, though. I mean, I don't know about Cameron. He's sort of coming across now, he's sort of starting to get the message that they are seriously talking about strapping that 5p fuel increase in April. I mean, that's definitely, I mean, if they do that, I'll be really surprised.
Do you believe ultimately that any government must give in to the will of the people if the will of the people is strong enough? Yeah,
but that's not the question, really, is it? I mean, everybody would sort of vote for hanging, wouldn't they, and stuff like that. You've got to sort of bat away anything that's sort of off beam, you know, like sort of... otherwise you just get living. I mean, that's what they reckon happened with Hitler. Hitler would sort of sit in his office and they'd all come in and try and impress him with like sort of biggest thing they could think of, you know, and that's how concentration camps and everything else that happened from that got going, you know, like sort of just more extreme, more extreme, more extreme, more extreme. And to a certain extent that's what's been happening particularly with Labour under Brown. But I mean Blair had sort of put everything in position to sort of go there, and then Brown was sort of locked into it, and then I suppose Tories winning the election sort of took a bit of pressure off that. I mean they have stopped ID cards, which is like sort of worth voting Tories in for a start, you know, like sort of at least they got rid of that. But there's still all this other crap sort of stacked up, all based around 2008 Climate Change Act that Mylabeit put through, you know. I mean, he's going to rue it because I mean it'll come back to bite him. In fact, before the next election, it'll come back to bite him, and you know, his position as leader of the Labour Party will be totally untenable. When truth does actually come out of what they've actually been up to and what they were sort of planning secretly behind everybody's backs. Because I don't think half of these politics, I mean, you can tell them and think, oh, it's a complete crackpot, you know, and it weren't anything to do with that, you know, like sort of, I mean, it's all sort of coming out, you know, that if you go onto the New Commonwealth Party website and check back down wall, there's some really good links on there about what eco-fascists are actually up to, and like I said before, one of them, this video alleging ghettos, has been sort of took down by its sponsors, which included Shell and BP and Tesco, I think, as well. Forum for the Future, I think it was, sort of a quango they set up. And you know, like, this is our green future and how wonderful it's going to be, you know, like you can't, not allowed to eat meat anymore, and you're not allowed to do this and you're not allowed to do that. And
please remember to join us in part 8, where Gordon and myself will be discussing the new Commonwealth Party.